Hello everyone, this is Jason and I'm the author of the LG OLED recommended settings guide that you'll find on Reddit. I wanted to provide a series of videos where I go through the settings at a high level and in increasing detail because I know there's a lot of information in the guide and it can be pretty overwhelming to go through on your first run through. So if you go to this OLED gaming subreddit, at the top there should be a link to the settings guide, and that should take you to my post where I have consolidated all the information basically into a Google Sheets document. And then I have provided a link to a Discord server called HDR Den where you can reach out to me or other people there if you have questions related to HDR gaming. And then the changelog link will take you to this post where I provide periodic updates when I make major changes to the guide and the date that I made those changes. So if you click the first link, you should be taken to this Google Sheets document. At the top, you'll see there are several tabs. The first group of tabs are all called settings, and those are the ones that you're going to want to pay the most attention to. The second set of tabs are all references. You do not have to read through these in order to set up your TV. So starting with the settings, the first one is called intro. It says start here, and it says setup in gaming. So step 1, step 2, and step 3, those steps are basically referring to these two tabs. Gaming steps 1 and 2 is on this tab, and gaming step 3 is on this tab. And we'll go through that in a second. Throughout the guide, you'll see several prefixes. So these mean within these brackets. If you see this bracket before a setting, that means that that is a pre-existing condition that must apply for that setting to be relevant. So usually this refers to something like it needs to be a C3 model or a C4 model, or it could be that it needs to be an SDR, it's only an SDR only setting, or it's an HDR only setting, or it's an Xbox only setting, etc. Now, if there's this type of bracket with a number, that is referring you to a footnote, and that will be discussed under this tab, Settings and Footnotes. You don't have to read through this. This is mainly here for my personal reference so I can have the information readily available, but it is there for you if you are curious about getting more information about where a setting came from or how I derived the numbers that I did. All right. The next row here is discussion. You can read through this if you just want a general discussion about the purpose of this guide and LG OLED and OLED in general. The resources tab, the first row here, required utilities. I would encourage you to download these programs. Several of these, such as color control, are used pretty extensively in the guide, especially when it comes to HDR. The LG OLED TVs are not monitors, so they don't, if you want them to behave like a monitor, you're definitely going to want to take advantage of CRU and color control. The optional utilities row provides links to other software programs that I find useful but are not necessary. The secret menus row provides information on how you can access additional information about the TV. And then the reference row has links to various websites with discussion, especially related to HDR or HDMI, and various test patterns that you can use to evaluate to make sure that your settings are correct. So gaming step 1 and 2. So what is step 1? Step 1 is connect your device. So plug it in, and you got to make sure that you have a HDMI ultra premium high-speed cable or whatever it's called that's capable of 48 gigabytes per second. Otherwise, you're going to have some difficulty with setting this up with the proper resolution and refresh rate. All right, so it's difficult for me to lay out the settings in a menu tree because LG's settings menus change from year to year, and it can be, some of these settings can be pretty buried within them. So unfortunately, a lot of this may be sort of a treasure hunt, trying to find where the settings are located in their menus. LG in the recent models has organized their settings, their picture mode settings in particular, under brightness, color, and clarity. So I've tried to put these into that same category. I've also added a gaming category and then just OS category type settings that don't really fit anywhere else. The second step is going to be related to launching your game. So you're going to need to launch something in either SDR. So if you're going to launch an SDR game, then you'll look at these settings. If you're going to launch a game in HDR10, then you're going to look at these pink settings. And then if you're going to launch a game in Dolby Vision, you're going to look at these beige settings again. And we're going to go through the picture mode in more detail in a second. And then up here, you'll see this optional table. And these are all related to sound settings. I don't go too much into detail on the sound settings because some of you may just be using the built-in speakers and there's not much you need to set up. But if you are using an external device, these are the recommended settings for how you should set up that external device, assuming you are using eARC. All right, gaming step 3, this is the one that has a lot of information in it, and this is the one that I generally update the most frequently. So I basically try to group the settings into these categories called resolution, scaling, refresh rate, color, HDR, VRR and latency, spatial sound, image retention, and text rendering. The columns are color coded. So the all devices, this means this column applies to every device that you would connect. And this is basically related to your in-game settings. So you're going to have to launch the game and go into the game settings menu in order to set up most of this. The pink section is all related to PC users. So the first column, the dark pink, is Windows 11. So this should apply to all PC users. And the light pink columns are all related to different GPUs. So NVIDIA is going to be the main workhorse. I also provide some settings for AMD, but I do not have an AMD GPU any longer. So if there are errors here or updates that need to be made, please let me know. And then similarly for Intel, I have not purchased an Intel GPU because they haven't released one that is capable of the capable of powering at 4K 120 TV. And then the next beige section is all for console users. So we have this first column is going to be for the Xbox Series X, and the second column for the PS5, and then the third column for the Nintendo Switch. So I specifically mentioned the Xbox Series X and not the Series S because I am only interested for purposes of this guide of trying to set up something that is capable of outputting at 4K 120 because I assume that is what most people are buying this TV to do. The Nintendo Switch is the one exception because there is basically no 4K 120 capable Nintendo Switch yet. And so I will provide some basic settings for how to set up the Switch, which is going to be mostly related to scaling issues and input lag. All right. And then this other tab here is related to video. So this is basically a mirror of gaming steps 1 and 2, but this is going to be for the purposes of watching video. So SDR video, HDR10, and Dolby Vision. So there are some changes in here that you'll want to go through. Okay. And then this tab here is the FAQ. After you've gone through the setup and there may be some lingering questions or some things that may not make sense. And so I would encourage you to read through this FAQ. These are a lot of the questions that I receive frequently or other points that I think may be confusing. And then again, the footnotes tab is all detailed discussion related to some of the settings. That's mainly here for my own personal reference, but you may find it helpful as well. All right. So in the next video, what I'm going to do is focus on going through gaming steps 1 and 2, and then gaming steps 3.